In today's video, we're going to be tying into a Lee & Sons sheepskin grommeted bag. Stay tuned. Well, hello everybody, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please think about liking the video, subscribing to the channel, sharing with any other pipers you know, and comment below with any thoughts you might have. I also give Skype lessons if you want more personalized instruction, but more on that later. Well, today we have a real treat, everybody. Here is a Lee & Sons sheepskin bag with zipper and grommets in the medium Gandy cut. So I'm very excited to, one, tie this in, show you how I'm going to go about doing it, the order and process, as well as playing on this Gandy bag, because it's a bigger back and a leaner front was how it was described to me. But let's get to it. So the first thing I do, it comes with two leather strips. We want to roll these up. I use dental elastics on here to hold them together when I'm done. You could tie them up with a little bit of string. That works too. This is just easy. Again, these are going to go on either side of the welt of the chanter tie-in. Lee & Sons provides wonderful tie-in cord. It's very, very heavy duty. It's not stretchy at all, and it actually does seem to hold itself together pretty well during the process while not being overly sticky. This stuff seems great. I'd like to know where they got some of this because I could see myself buying it for other tie-in projects. I have a metal bar here with a hole drilled through it that I'm going to use to tie in. But any sort of dowel works. I wouldn't recommend a hammer. I've seen people use hammers. If you pull a hammer towards your face, you could, have a hammer in your face. Don't do that. But nothing too skinny either. You don't want it to break on you. So I have the supplied cord wrapped around my metal tube here. And I also have a little pull-through knot. Now I just tie a bowline knot in a little end of this. I'm going to run this under the string. So I'm going to put like a wrap of this around the joint when I start. I'm going to lay this under, wrap everything else around it, and then pull it through when I'm done. So a lot of what's going to hold this string in place is actually the tension of the tie-in itself, and then I'll leave enough when I'm left over to tie a couple of half hitches, and then I'll put a dot of super glue in there once I know it's all airtight and good to go. So again, I'm going to start with the chanter stock because in the case of a grommeted zippered bag like this, there's no need to start with the other stocks. If this was a traditional bag with no zipper, no grommets, you have to feed everything through the neck, so you can't start with the chanter. But it means when you go to tie in the chanter, you have all these other stocks kind of clanking together. This is going to make it a little bit easier to get this chanter in place because this is the most challenging one to tie in. I have a video all about chanter stock tie-in, but I'm going to do it again here for you guys. But if you want to check out the other video, it'll be linked in a card up there. This is a McClellan piper tying in. My good friend Steve Allen here has a set that he's letting me film and bought this bag for, but they don't use the traditional groove. So normally it would look like that. This one has a bunch of small grooves. Never quite known why. It works just fine, but it is different. Makes it a little bit harder to put the sticky tack. Lee & Sons does provide some sticky tack, which is great. I always have plenty. I normally do a ring around the whole thing. I'm going to still try that, put a thin little amount around the whole thing so that when I tie it in, it really bites into that and helps keep everything airtight. But without a groove, we'll see if it stays in place or not. And Steve's like me, not very tall, so I'm going to put it a little bit lower. So I guess the thing here is there's lots of different places, lots of small grooves, so you have areas where you can tie it in. So I got a thin layer of the sticky tack all around. I have some more wall mounting putty here that we're also going to put along the actual welt right here. And when we're tying in, I actually kind of want to see it almost goo and ooze out. I want to make sure this is nice and tight and that we don't have to tie it in a second time. Also cool, because of this zipper, I can feed this through on the inside. What's making this a little difficult is this wonderful swan neck it has. That's going to make playing this thing a joy. It's going to make tying it in just a little bit more of a pain. At least getting it in. Here we go. It's coming through now. Now again, with the player being not the tallest fellow like myself, I'm not going to put this too far down out of the gooseneck. I want to make sure the chanter can stay nice and high so that we're not having to reach down too far while playing. So we have this out. I'm going to see now if I can just shove some of this wall mounting putty up into the welt. Again, I'm using additional. Lee & Sons provides enough for just the welt. They don't provide enough for the welt and to go around the stock the way I did. So if you want to do that, you'll have to go to the store, buy some wall mounting putty. But this stuff's not very expensive. What the heck, I'm just going to put a little bit around the whole bottom of this joint because I don't want to tie this in again. Seriously, guys, if I had known about this wall mounting putty trick, live tying in, I might not have gone to synthetic bags. I was just too dumb to know this when I was younger. Because when I tie in, we're going to go both around where the normal traditional groove would be, or the non-groove in this case, or the small groove in this case. But I'm also going to run some around the very bottom as well, just right from the start. Some people tie these bags in enough they can do just one time through the whole thing. It looks amazing. Good for you guys. I might be able to get away with that these days. I'm not sure. I'm not going to risk it, so we're going to go ahead and just do both to start. Now, to begin the tie-in process, so we have the stock in here. It's not going anywhere, which is nice. We're going to be putting these rolled up blue bits of leather on either side, as you can see right there. Now, there's lots of methods for tying in. My method involves just pulling on one side and using the instrument itself across. Some people will stand on one and pull it up. I don't want to hurt myself. I find I can do just fine with one, rod or dowel. To start this, we're going to be using the double constrictor knot, which is kind of a modified clove hitch that stays in place after you tighten it. It doesn't loosen at all, so that's super useful. I'll have a graphic on screen here, as well as a PDF download of how to tie this particular knot in the description below. So I have the constrictor knot tied here, ready to pull tight. It's not loosening right now, even in its slightly loosened form, it's not loosening, which is great. Just grabbing my little leather deals, which of course I lost one, to kind of put under there before we pull it tight, because this thing ain't going anywhere. There it is. Okay, so we have this ready to tighten up. We got both leather supports around the welt. We have the constrictor knot ready. I put my pull through under as well, right there. So we have our leather supports. We have the pull through. Now let's go ahead and wind this up and give it a good solid pull, tightening this constrictor knot, and then wrapping the rest of this joint. Yeah. Fantastic knot. As I'm pulling this, it is not loosening at all. That is absolutely wonderful. I almost wonder if I could tie it in just this one single knot and be done. We have quite a bit of slack on the other side from the initial knot, though. I'm going to cut that shorter so it's not in my way. Another wrap and a good solid pull. And notice I'm pulling across, not up, across. Now, I have not had this Lee & Sons string break yet, but I'm not going to risk it. So now I'm going around the bottom, like I said I would do. So I have some wrappings here and some wrappings at the bottom. This cord's nice and thick, so I don't feel I have to necessarily do as many wraps as with the thinner artificial sinew that I used to use. Now I'm pulling back, forward and back, but still not into my face. If this were to break, my arm would go back, not up. Now I'm actually doing a wrap under the two supports as well as over. I like to do both as well, so I guess I'm even tying it in kind of in three areas. Again, I want to make sure this is not going to be leaking air in any way. Now let's go back up to the top, and I think we're just about done. Now we're not going to know if this is an airtight joint until we get the rest of the bag tied in, but with grommets that's going to go quite quickly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave a ton of slack, but I want to make sure that we have enough to tie a good couple of half hitches. And then once I'm sure the whole thing is airtight, after it's all tied in, we're going to hold those knots and everything in place with some super glue, just a little dot of super glue, because I don't want the string moving over time. So now this has been pulled through, held in place by the tension of the wrap of the tie-in itself. Now we're going to go around and I'm going to tie a double half hitch just to finish it off and secure it. So I left about an inch of slack after the knots to have plenty to kind of glue down. Now let's move on to these grommets. Now the first thing I'm going to do on these grommets is take some extra electrical tape and I'm going to wrap the grommets themselves. This isn't in the instructions to my knowledge, but I want to make sure that I'm not damaging these grommets in any way when I'm putting these hose clamps on them. And it's also nice to have the electrical tape when you're done to put around the hose clamp so that the sharp bits that are all over it doesn't damage the leather at all. 4 or 5 wraps of electrical tape around each grommet's probably going to be fine. Electrical tape is not expensive. I'm just going to do it beforehand so I don't forget after the fact. You kids these days and your grommeted hide bags.
It's better than trying to cut them in.
It is. I have a video about cutting them in. Link up here if you have a more traditional bag with just no holes and you want to figure out how to aim correctly with where they go. But that is always a harrowing moment when you take a knife to a $300 or more pipe bag. Now, as many folks know, I'm kind of a goat guy these days, but I wouldn't be opposed to a sheep. I play quite a lot. I think I could keep one of these up and going, and I keep my office nice and moist. I'll probably be doing a review of my humidifier at some point that I use to keep my office always around 50% humidity. There's some electrical tape around each of the grommets now, so that when we tighten these hose clamps, even if it starts cutting in just a little bit, it'll be cutting into the tape and not the grommet. And finally, for lubrication, I've typically used just the zipper seal, if they're zipper sealed, to go through the grommets. But Lee & Son specifically says to use some soapy water, so I'm going to just use some dish soap right here and kind of just lubricate. I don't think I need any water. I think just the soap is going to be enough. So a slightly different method than I talked about in my previous videos, but again, I want to follow the manufacturer's instructions. And I'm even going to put a little bit into the grommet itself. So I got a little bit on my finger, and I'm just kind of going around the grommet. And now that I'm pushing it through, I'm kind of making an O with my hands and actually just pushing it against my leg, trying to make sure that it's nice, even pressure the whole way as best I can. Now I'm going to use the butt of my hand. So these grommets, they're not quite as snug as, say, a Bannatyne, but they're pretty snug. That's good. That's good. Now I happen to be starting with the outside tenor. I often start with the base to make sure I don't mix it up, but I was paying attention this time. I know which one's which. I'm pushing it through until I feel one part of the groove level with the outside of the bag. The other part is just a little bit below where the bag is, because these grommets are nicely actually angled. So the stock in the bag is kind of not quite level, but that's a good thing. All right, so we have this one in place. Let's go ahead and put a hose clamp on. For the outside, I like to put the hose clamp with the screw facing the middle, not the outside, so you don't accidentally maybe have a little bit of the screw bit there going into your arm while you're playing. And we're going to tighten this till snug, not until impossible. This is not like putting a part on your car or whatever. We just need this airtight, and we're not putting nearly as much pressure on the bag as you might think. It's not measured in PSI, it's measured in inches of water. And you can always tighten it a bit more if you find it's leaking after the fact, so don't go down too far. So I have just like 2 fingers in my thumb, and I'm going to say that's good for right now. I don't have the whole thing. I could probably get 4 more turns out of my whole hand, but I want to start with not too much tension. We can always tighten it later, but we could damage the bag or even damage the pipes if we go too far. We don't want to do that. Again, I have my hand all the way around the grommet so that there's not too much pressure in any one spot. And again, for the base now, we're going to kind of turn around. I've had the last 2 screw bits on the inside. Well, both are on the inside here. I want this one on the inside too, but it is going to be facing the other way because of it. Because again, you don't want the little hose clamp kind of rubbing up against your torso. Ouch. Blowpipe. And this one's already well angled, the grommet that's coming out, so I'm just going to put it through at a 90 degree to the outside of the grommet because it's pre-angled. If you need help angling blowpipes, I'll have a link up here to a portion of the video where I talk about how you can actually make a little rig between your bass drone and your blowpipe stock to angle it back, but I think this one's going to be just fine. So we're just about ready to fire this thing up and make sure it's not leaking air out of any of the joints. And then it'll be time to season. And I'll be using just good old-fashioned airtight for that. And just like that, everybody, we have this whole bag. From start to finish, the camera's been rolling for 32 minutes so far, but it has not taken 32 minutes to tie this thing in. Talking to a camera slows the whole thing down. This went quite quickly. Even the chanter tie-in didn't take that long, and these grommets are super easy to use. Now, before we cork this thing up and test it for airtightness, we are going to put some of the T-zip on the zipper. I tend to just run it along one whole side of the zipper. Not too terribly much. It doesn't take a ton, but I do want to make sure it's in every tooth. And then I also want to make sure it's in the little holes that are at the very end. It kind of even shows you to do that on the diagram that it comes with. Helps keep it airtight, helps keep it lubricated so we're not putting undue pressure on the bag as we move this zipper. So I'm grabbing the whole bag, including part right on the zipper, but that already is sliding nice and smooth. I'm just going to go back and forth one more time. We're going to go ahead and cork this thing up and see how it's doing. Now, I corked this from the outside, but I just realized there's a zipper. I was about to go into how I have previously made sure that my stocks stay clean when I'm seasoning, but in this case, we can just cork it from the inside. That's going to make life so much easier when it comes time to, well, be done seasoning this thing. You won't have to be cleaning your stocks out, because the seasoning getting up in your stocks is kind of a yucky pain. The only one that's going to have some in it is going to be the blowpipe, and maybe a little bit on the chanter. But in this case, to be honest, yeah, we're going to actually leave. I do want to actually pour some seasoning down the chanter stock, because I want to make sure we're getting seasoning right here in the neck of the whole thing. That's pretty important. We're going to pour some of it here and some of it actually through the zipper opening. So we're going to leave a traditional, outside cork on this one. That's a relatively short stock compared to these. So these are now corked on the inside. I think that's going to be wonderful. All right, the moment of truth. We have some piping hot, airtight here, and our bag. So I'm going to go ahead and pour a certain amount into just the bag itself, through the zipper. Let's make sure the nose is higher. I don't want it leaking out. Now we're going to carefully zip this up. Okay, again, stocks are corked from the inside. We've got a moose valve in this one. I'm going to pour. And that's about half a bottle airtight now that I have used. That cork's in there nice and firm. Grab the blowpipe and see if it's leaking out anywhere. Get the seasoning all over everywhere. You want to work with the seasoning while it's nice and warm before it starts to congeal. Okay, it looks like we got a bit of a leak. Whereabouts? I'm going to give just a little bit. I heard a little, but now I'm not seeing it anywhere. So we're just going to give a little bit of an extra little twist on each one of these screws, because I'm not seeing it come out the chanter stock, which is good. I don't want to retie it. Hearing a little something, but as the seasoning's going through it, it seems to be going away. And it's definitely getting much tighter now, as you can see, as the seasoning is doing its job. This airtight is some wonderful stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of other great seasonings on the market, but I've been an airtight guy, so that's what I use. Steve, I think you got a good-looking bag here, man.
Looking good.
Okay, so just a little bit coming out from right here. You notice I left some space between. I see just the tiniest bit of seasoning leaking out right here. Now the seasoning just coming through it might make that airtight eventually, but I'm going to tie one more constrictor knot around this in this open space and really clamp that down and see if that fixes our problem. Nothing coming out now with an extra tie-in here. All right, back to the seasoning process. So now I'm going to gently vent the blowpipe stock here. We don't want seasoning spraying all out. It's still going to be really warm. But I want to get the bag deflated now, because now I want to actually massage the seasoning kind of into the skin itself. Make sure it's getting into the welt, and that everything is being covered, all of the area around the zipper. But I want to make sure that we're really getting good coverage everywhere we can with this seasoning. Then we're going to hang it up and let it dry for a bit. That is an airtight bag, everybody. This is fantastic. And I think the shape is quite nice. As you can clearly see here, it gets a little narrower in the front, nice and beefy in the back. I can get no additional air in right now. This is awesome. We're going to go ahead, hang this up, let it dry. Guys, this is a tremendous bag. This is absolutely lovely, super comfortable. I'm not feeling any tension on my forearm, the Gandy cut. I'm in love, guys. This is fantastic. Very tight now after letting it drain and letting the season set up. It's awesome. I have no complaints. Tie-in was easy because there's only one thing to tie in. The attachment of everything else went great. If you're in the market for a sheepskin bag and don't want to go through the bother of cutting and tying in everything, the Grommet Zipper Lee & Sons sheepskin or goatskin or even cowhide bag, because they're all going to have the same cut, but this is the sheepskin, and it smells wonderful too. I mean it. This is great. There you go, guys. My thoughts on the Lee & Sons bag here. If you got something out of this video, though, think about giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Maybe even heading over to my Patreon, where as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping support the channel. And are you planning on a Lee & Sons bag, grommeted or otherwise? If so, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you want more personalized instruction, go ahead and head over to www.mattpiper.com or email me at matt@mattpiper.com and we'll get you going. I'm working with students from all over the world, and I hope to have a chance to work with you soon. All right, everybody, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and until next time, cheers.